Alcohol. Alcohol is also a neurotoxin. There is no safe dose of mercury and there is no safe dose of alcohol. Mercury was banned in America for 300 years, till about the early 1920s, when 3 European dentists started their own association, the American Dental Association, where they legalised mercury. Why do they love mercury? Because it is the only metal that is liquid, and so it moulds to the teeth, and it is antiseptic. It's antiseptic, all right, it's anti-life, it's anti-human. No safe dose of it. Alcohol was banned in America for 13 years, from 1920 to 1933. And if you can get the results of that 13 years, why do I say that? Because it's very difficult to get the results. They like you to think that alcohol was legalised to stop the black market, the mafia, the moonshine, but the American government promised the American people if they legalised alcohol, they would not have to pay taxes. But you can get some figures. One of the figures is mental institution occupancy dropped to 8% when the alcohol was gone. Domestic violence almost wiped out. The jails were a lot emptier when the alcohol was illegal in America. Some states were a little bit slower on changing around, but the results were phenomenal. There's no safe dose of alcohol. It's a neurotoxin. That means it kills brain cells, and I don't know about you, but I don't want any more brain cells to go. And the brain cells we have now, we have for life. So alcohol must go if you're looking for optimum performance. Tobacco. There are some pretty impressive pictures on the side of the road today. I don't know whether impressives of the world. Some of them are horror pictures showing the effect of tobacco, and every single one of them is true. One of the slogans said, tobacco affects almost every organ in the body. Wrong, every organ, because it affects the blood, but it particularly affects the respiratory. So a person who smokes can get nasal cancer, they can get tongue cancer, they can get throat cancer. Cancer can go all through the lung area. There is no safe dose of this. Have you ever had a fire and cleaned your chimney out? That gives you an idea of what's building up in the lungs of human beings. Drugs do not cure disease. They only change the form and location of the disease. Every drug has a side effect. I had a guest say to me recently, he said, Barbara, they're not side effects, they're effects. They're one of the effects of the medication. Absolutely right, the drug might alleviate one symptom, but it can create a whole lot of other symptoms. That's why I say to people, if you're on any medication at all, you need to go to the chemist and get a printout and have a very good look at the side effects of the medication that you're on, because every drug has a side effect. Some drugs must not be stopped immediately. That's why I say if you're on medication, you must work with a health professional who can show you how to ease off and implement lifestyle changes. Even herbs, there are a whole range of things that can be done to bring about a healing condition in the body. Monosodium glutamate. Monosodium glutamate is called an excitotoxin because it causes the nerve cells on the tongue to overfire. And when the nerve cells on the tongue overfire, the food tastes fantastic. Do you know what that means? Rotten food would taste good. Do you know it's one of the causes of food poisoning is people are eating rotten food and they don't know it because of the amount of MSGs in there making anything taste good. When we eat food in its natural state, when we're eating organic food that has a far higher mineral content giving it a better taste, there's no need to go to the artificial flavourings and colourings. You'll find MSG in the 620s to 630s, that's the number, But be careful, they're putting it under different names now. Hydrolyzed vegetable protein, hydrogenated vegetable protein, and flavour enhancers. They're other names for MSG. If MSG is an excitotoxin, and if it causes the nerve cells on the tongue to overfire, it causes nerve cells everywhere to overfire. And the highest concentration will be found where the spinal cord meets the brain, and you'll find a lot of people who have a meal with MSG in it get a pain in that area. Chemicals. We've got to get the chemicals out of our toothpaste, out of our shampoo, out of our laundry detergent, out of our homes. Shannon Lush, she's often on Talkback Radio. She has a book called Completely Spotless. We have it in our library. And she has alternatives to just about everything regarding cleaning. I bought my daughter a book called Good Old Days, Good Old Ways. And that book shows all the ways that housewives used to clean things using natural products. We don't even need to go to that. In the supermarket today, you can find biodegradable washing detergents. You can even find whiteners. I know Eco Store is one. There are actually quite a few. I like white pillowcases, but I don't want to use bleach. But these whiteners do a very good job, and they don't have any toxic ingredients in them. This is a very socially acceptable list, isn't it? There's no need for me to talk about the dangers of cyanide, arsenic, ice, heroin, but there definitely is a need to discuss the dangers of this list, because most people will agree with me this is a very socially acceptable list. And little by little, like the dripping tap on a stone, these substances are eating away at the proper functioning of the human body. But I think one of the scariest places they're eating away at proper body functions is the brain. And in my last lecture, I'm going to show you how these things directly affect the brain. There are 1,700 new cases of Alzheimer's diagnosed every week in Australia. Here we have another epidemic. And little by little, these are causing a deterioration of the proper functioning of the brain. And this is why temperance is an important law of health. Because if you don't turn the tap off, you're still going to be mopping up in the other corner. If you don't find the cause, you will never get a cure. And because all these substances don't appear to make you sick as soon as you have them, often people think that a little bit won't hurt you, but not so. We're going to look at our fourth law now, which is the law of rest. There's a tiny little gland in the base of our brain called the pineal gland. And the pineal gland releases 4 hormones every night. And it's about as big as the little circle that I have drawn here. The pineal gland. In my Anatomy and Physiology book of the 70s, it is said not much is known about the pineal gland, but a lot is known about the pineal gland today. Light and dark signals are fed through the optic nerve to a control centre in the brain where your body clock is located. And the body clock communicates with the pineal gland and causes a release of 4 hormones between the hours. Daylight saving is between 10 and 3 a.m. When winter comes, or if you're living in Queensland, it'll be between 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. It is in these hours that these 4 hormones are released, and they are responsible for revival and renewal. One is serotonin. Serotonin is your mood hormone. This explains why the children aren't very happy if they have late nights. Either of the adults, actually. You want to feel good every day, all day, go to bed early. Arginine vasotocin. Arginine vasotocin is a hormone that puts you into a deep sleep. Arginine vasotocin is also your natural painkiller. If you have any type of pain, go to bed early. Your natural painkiller will kick in. I meet people who have trouble sleeping. And when I ask them what time they go to bed, they say, oh, I don't go to bed till midnight. Because they have this reasoning that if they stay awake a little bit longer, they'll get more tired and they'll sleep better. But the opposite's true. The earlier you go to bed, the more likely you are to fall into a deep sleep because of arginine vasotocin. I read an article in Time magazine on sleep. They said, sleeping tablets don't do a whole lot because you don't wake revived, and it's really not fixing the problem. They said, what helps more than anything else the research has shown is cognitive behavioural therapy. Let me illustrate cognitive behavioural therapy. We had a lady do our program and she said to me, my sleep drives me crazy. She said, I wake up at 3 every morning, she said, and I get so annoyed. I get so annoyed, why am I waking at this time? And I can't sleep again. After hearing this lecture, I said to her, now if you wake at 3 in the morning, you can say, this is fantastic. I've got my hours of power. And you can just relax and plan your day. And she did. And she actually went back to sleep. It's because she was so annoyed. It was affecting her worry, so she could not sleep. So these are your hours of power. These are your hours of renewal, regeneration. Another hormone is epithalamin. Epithalamin is a hormone that reduces aging, and it also increases learning capacity. When you hear the lecture on the mind, you will see that we should never be out of school. We should always be learning new things. Many people in the latter years of life have trouble learning new things because they're dehydrated and they're going to bed too late and they're not exercising, as you will see. So if you want to increase your learning capacity, make sure you're asleep at the moment by 10. In the winter, make sure you're asleep by 9. Those early mornings are called the hours of gold. About 6 years ago, I had to do a 10,000-word thesis to finish my nutrition course. I had 1 week to do it. I didn't have to do it in a week, but I wanted to do it in a week because I wanted to graduate at the up-and-coming seminar. And I did it. I went to bed at 8 o'clock. I woke at 4 o'clock. I had 2 hours of peak study time, and I made it. And when I read my thesis today, I think, wow, who wrote this? Well done. Brain sparky at that time of the morning. The last one is melatonin. Melatonin has a nickname. It's called the fix and rejuvenate nighttime hormone. So sleeping in these hours allows the pineal gland to release these hormones that are responsible for our body getting rest and rejuvenation in the night. And there are things that you can do that will cause an increase in the output of these hormones, and there are things that you can do that will cause a decrease. Let's look at those. Increase. Laughter. No wonder the proverb says, a merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones. That brings us to the decrease. Worry. What's the old saying for worry? Worry is blind and cannot discern the future. So we need to laugh more. I think I mentioned the other day that children laugh 125 times a day. So should we. We should laugh more. Sleeping in the dark. You see, it is light and dark signals that are fed through the optic nerve to the control centre in the brain that gives the messages to the pineal gland. So it's very important that the lights are off while you're sleeping. Sleep in the dark. Sunshine in the day. These are both giving very clear messages to the pineal gland. So it doesn't surprise you to hear me say that artificial light is very confusing to the pineal gland. Especially, I'm referring to the screens. How many people's eyes are glued to screens in these hours? And I'm referring to the television, I'm referring to the iPod, the iPad, the computer, the Game Boys. I say to parents, you must have some rules in your home. My brother-in-law gathers all the teenagers' technology of in the evening and charges it in his office overnight. It's a very good, very good idea. I think one of the contributing factors to the mental illness we're seeing, especially in adolescents and teenagers, is the overexposure of the eyes to these screens when the pineal gland should be reviving and recharging. And as you'll see on Saturday morning when we look at the lecture on the mind, the frontal lobe of the brain doesn't develop till 30. We're getting brains that are getting damaged before they're even developed. We have computers, handy stuff. I don't have to carry 2 suitcases loads of books when I'm doing a school. I just need a computer and it's all on there. Very handy. It's the overexposure, as I looked at when I discussed the eyes, but it also is within these hours. So you'll be doing your body and your brain a great favour if you make a decision not to allow your eyes to observe the screens in these hours. Alcohol. Alcohol causes a 41% reduction in the output of these hormones. So that bit of red wine might put you to sleep, but you'll wake with half-charged batteries. Caffeine. Caffeine causes a cut in half for 6 hours. So these hormones are cut in half for 6 hours after caffeine. Exercise. I will be discussing exercise in a later lecture, but when you implement the exercise that causes the body to start running more efficiently, you can double the output of those hormones at night. Fasting. When we go to bed with empty tummies and quiet intestines, the intestines produce tryptophan. And tryptophan is a key amino acid used in the production of melatonin and serotonin. Meat is high in an amino acid called methionine. And methionine, in high amounts, blocks the action of tryptophan. This knowledge allows you to get more out of your day, more out of your life. What's the old saying? Early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. They didn't know about the pineal gland. In the 1970s, they didn't know about the pineal gland. But science today is proving the truth behind that old saying. I was reading an interview of a 116-year-old Russian man on his secrets of longevity. He says, I rise with the sun, I go down with the sun. He didn't realise it, but he's getting his good quota of his reviving, renewing hormones every single night. There's one other part that I'd like to cover in rest. And that is an organ of the body that rarely gets a rest today. It's called stomach. We have one stomach. I'm going to put a big number 1 here, just to remind us how many stomachs we have. Just one. You see cows, sheep, goats, they have several stomachs. And they can eat all day long because it goes from one stomach into the next stomach, into the next stomach. But we only have one. A couple of years ago, I got a book from America. Amazon found it for me. Found it for me in Aristotle State College Library, Teacher's Library. And it's called The Physiology of Digestion by Dr. William Beaumont. I'd read of articles referring to this story. It's a remarkable story. And it happened in the probably early 1800s, where a young man named Alexis St. Martin sustained a gunshot wound to the stomach. So this gunshot, it was an accident, went through and it blew out part of his ribs and some of his stomach. At the time, Dr. William Beaumont was only 25, and he attended Alexis St. Martin, and he said he would not live.